And I'm like, I really wish he would make that switch.
To Mike?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uncle Munkle is what it sounds like when you say
Munkle,
that.
yeah.
It's not cool.
Hey guys, before we get into this episode, I wanted to let you know I completely spaced at one part in here where I mentioned that I had a dream, actually just the other night before the last night as I record this, about pornography, and I just mentioned it, sort of teased you guys about it, and I didn't actually tell you what the dream was, and so I've actually tacked that on to the very end of this episode. I'll tell you guys about that dream. I think it was sort of an eye-opener, some insight for me, and may help some of you guys as well. So listen all the way to the end, even after Brandon and I wrap things up. Thanks. All right, let's get on with this thing here.
Let's do it.
So if you guys are listening to this, it's because we released the first episode of the Ask a Man series of podcast episodes. That's kind of redundant. But we got some good feedback from you guys, or because Brandon and I just need an excuse to get together, and our wives kind of bought into this whole thing. So
Bro time.
We got a couple of good questions for you guys today, some pretty serious stuff. We're going to be talking about female boss issues and pornography, but those are two different questions, just so you guys know. Don't get too excited about where this might be going. But I got some thoughts on this. I know Brandon's got some thoughts on this. And so essentially, we're going to kick off with the female bosses thing first. And the question comes from a guy who I'm not going to name his name because he gives us a lot of details here, but basically he says that he thinks that his female boss feels threatened about what he might call or what she might see as toxic masculinity. That's sort of in air quotes there. And he says the impression that I get from her is the fact that she abuses her authority to bully me by giving me pointless busy work. She singles me out for it, doesn't do it to anybody else. By the way, all of my other colleagues are female, Now, this is kind of a long email, so I'm not going to go into all the details about what this guy is actually going through particularly, because some of it sounds more like just issues that you would have with any boss that you just need to address. They're just not a very good leader. But I think there is an issue, though, with female bosses in general. And I want you guys to understand what I'm saying and what I'm not saying here. I'm not saying that women can't be bosses, or that women shouldn't be bosses, or that they shouldn't be the managers, leaders, what have you, over men. I'm not saying that at all. But it is different for us guys from the natural hierarchy of things, where, when men are typically supposed to be the protectors of women. We kind of think about ourselves as the guys who come to the rescue and provide a lot of leadership and stuff like that. And so when we have a lady boss, it can be a little bit odd sometimes. I mean, just even if she does a fantastic job, it can still feel a little awkward sometimes. And so hear what I'm saying in that, and don't hear what I'm not saying in that. Brandon, what are your thoughts on kind of where I'm taking that?
Well, first things first, I want to lay the foundation. At my last job, where I was actually employed by someone other than myself, I had a female supervisor, and I know, right? And she was actually awesome, super squared away, great leader, knew how to get things done. Just a fantastic person to work for. When I was a police officer, the last sergeant I worked for was a female. Same thing. Awesome lady, knew how to get things done. And you think about it in that environment. I mean, you're a cop. Oh, yeah. You're supposed to be the alpha of the alphas. And, I was working for a lady. But some ladies do it well and some ladies don't. And I want to just dispel with anybody's preconceived notions that this might be coming from a sexist point of view, because it absolutely is not. I've also worked for another female at the bank. Actually, my boss's boss at the bank was horrible. She was a train wreck as a leader.
Right.
So I've run the gamut as far as female supervisors go. And I just wanted to make sure that we laid the foundation that none of this is coming from a position of sexism.
Right.
There's a couple of things that I read in this gentleman's question that were kind of like red flags for me.
All right.
Toxic masculinity and the pointless busy work stuff and things like that. I was like, okay, there's two sides to every story. There's his side, there's her side.
Sure.
And then the truth is usually somewhere in the middle.
Yep.
And the first thing I want to say is, if you're facing something like this, is check yourself. Make sure your air quotes toxic masculinity isn't actually toxic douchebaggery.
Right.
I'm not saying that's what's going on with this gentleman, but you have to check yourself. Check your ego. Understand there's a hierarchy of control there, and you are not the alpha. But there are things that you can do while you are the subordinate to one day become the superior. I've never written a book on leadership, but if I did, it would look an awful lot like Jocko Willink's book, Extreme Ownership.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
There are some just dynamite pointers in there that would really play well, and I would recommend to the gentleman that asked this question and anybody else that's struggling with these issues, get a copy of that book and read it cover to cover, and then put the principles into play. He talks about checking your ego in there, and that's a lot of it. Just because you're the subordinate doesn't mean you can't shine.
Yep.
If your boss is giving you crappy, stupid, busy work, do the work. Do it to the best of your ability, and do it with a smile on your face. Your boss has a boss, and when you do things like that, you will be noticed.
Yep.
Become the person that you would want to manage if you were the manager. My boss my job that I recently left at the bank, I had a leadership position, and I openly admitted to the people that I was leading that they were better at the job that I was leading them to do than I was.
Yeah.
And that sounds like, well, why would you say that? If you're the boss, you're supposed to know everything. No. Be humble. Let people know that, look, I don't know it all. I'm just here to get the paperwork shuffled and get you what you need and get out of your way. And just because you're better at the job than she is doesn't mean that you deserve to be in that leadership position. Leadership skills are vastly more important than the widget making skills in a workplace.
Absolutely right. Let me jump in there for a second too, because I wanted to point out something that I saw in the email as well, and that is that the guy makes a lot of assumptions, right?
Yes.
He makes a lot of assumptions about why the lady boss does what she does, and maybe there's reasons for that. Maybe her Facebook page is flooded with, Nazi, feminazi, whatever type of stuff. I mean, but probably not. Most of the time we make assumptions about why somebody does something simply based on their actions and our preconceived notions of why somebody would do that, right? So I would say throw away all of those assumptions. What you probably need to start with any position like this is the assumption that someone doesn't have the skills necessary to properly lead, right? So assuming that she's the one more at fault and not the guy asking the question. Assuming that she really is bad at leadership, and say maybe she just doesn't know how to lead, maybe even lead with people with his personality type or something along those lines. And so throw out the assumptions that she's a feminist or whatever the case is, simply because she treats you differently. So you got to do away with that. And also don't jump to the conclusions about her character, and don't undermine somebody's character simply because of failures of leadership. There's a very good chance that she's trying to do her best in the situation to help, make everything work out for everybody while still getting, whatever the task needs to be done. She's got somebody to be accountable to as well. Her job's probably on the line and all that kind of stuff. So don't make assumptions. Don't jump to conclusions. And that's all I would say for that. Back over to you.
Well, and this is, it should be pointed out too that this is a government position, which adds a whole nother level of bureaucracy and stupidity.
Yeah.
Although, my position in the private sector was equally bureaucratic and stupid, and there was just a lot of layers of complexity, so maybe not. But I know there's that stigma with government employees, and I'm a supervisor at a government position, so I'm untouchable, all that stuff. But my advice to the gentleman would be to shine. Do your job. Do it to amazing standards. Outshine, outwork, outdo everybody else in that place. And the next time a leadership position becomes available, make it so that the idea of choosing someone other than you would be inconceivable by the people that are in the higher leadership positions. Because everybody answers to somebody. But do your job, do it to the best of your ability, stay humble.
everybody looks up to the guy that can handle the boss that nobody else can handle.
Absolutely.
If you're the guy that can keep your cool, that can make things happen, that can communicate well with this person, it's going to take some work for you to figure out how to do that. Everybody has bad bosses. It doesn't matter if she's a lady or if it's a female, male boss. Doesn't matter. Dealing with difficult people is part of it, and the skills that you develop dealing up the chain of command, if you want to think about it like that, are the same skills that you're going to use to work with people that are difficult when you become a leader as well.
Yeah.
So be that guy, like Brandon's saying. Be the guy that can shine there, but also has the skills of the ability to work with somebody who's difficult when other people can't. And
I, not to keep beating the same drum, but the position I recently left, my boss's boss. So I had a lot of layers of supervision above me.
Big banks, they do that.
Yeah. My boss's boss was a train wreck, but his boss knew he was a train wreck and couldn't do anything about it.
Sure. Yeah.
But they really came to me for a lot of the expertise and a lot of the stuff like that, just because they knew there was nowhere else to go. Mm-hmm. None of the people that were below me wanted to step up and be the people with the answers or the people in charge or whatever, because they didn't want the responsibility. And the people immediately above me, while my immediate supervisor was the female that was a great supervisor, she didn't have a lot of the technical know-how, and she would tell you that. So it really creates a lot of opportunity when you can manage the manager that sucks.
Yeah.
Don't ever think of management as only a downhill street.
Right.
It is your job and your responsibility in an organization to manage those who are above you. And don't ever lose that perspective. Now, you have to do it well. You have to do it delicately, but manage up, manage down, manage horizontally. And like I said, if you read that book, Extreme Ownership, that we mentioned already, it really talks a lot about how you own every situation you find yourself in. And if it's going wrong, it's your fault. Yeah. So it's your responsibility to fix it.
Yeah.
Some certain outlying situations, but for the most part, it's spot on in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. I second Jocko's book as well. It's fantastic. And if you guys listen to the Audible book, it's actually kind of funny because Jocko and Leif, is it Leif or Leif?
Leif Babin.
Leif. They narrate the thing, right? And so Jocko's like, he's telling these stories about being in Iraq and all this cool stuff, right? And he's got an awesome voice. And he and Leif, both, I mean, they're the real deal. Yeah. And then when they get to the part where they're talking about the pinheads that they got to work with, I'm not calling pinheads really, but the business owners, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And they back talk Jocko. Like in this.
Like, do you realize I could kill you? I know. Like 6 times before lunch. Like, it's just, yeah. This dude, awesome. If you don't know anything about him, he's a Navy SEAL, 20-year veteran. He was a commander in Ramadi in 2006, which if you know anything about that was a very rough situation. And he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. Yep. So he's like a certified, bona fide badass.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you got to be a complete knucklehead, numbskull. I don't know what you would be. To look at a man like Jocko, knowing his history,
and talk back to him,
and say, I don't agree with what you're telling me.
Yeah.
But when Jocko does the voices of the guys that are like the business guys, he kind of drops down a little bit. He's kind of like, well, it's a little bit softer, a little bit easier. So listen to the Audible version. It's funny.
I've never listened to the Audible version. I actually read the paper version.
That was great.
Last point before we move on to the next question, because I see you getting antsy over there.
No, I'm good.
Don't ever talk about a problem without having a solution in mind, cocked, and ready to go.
Great. Yep.
I used to tell that to my people all the time. Don't bring me problems without solutions.
Yep.
Because if you're talking about a problem without a solution, you're just whining. Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody's got time for that.
Yeah. No, it's really good. One last thing I'll add on to this as well.
It's my podcast. I'll add the last guy.
I'll be the last guy. Look, this whole thing about working for a lady boss, if that just feels weird, I don't want to just say get over it, but you're going to have to get over it. I mean, I wish I could give you guys
Suck it up, buttercup.
It's not going to change, right? That's the way the world works. And look, especially if someone is in charge and they know what they're doing, it doesn't matter what gender they are. It doesn't matter what the case is. Respect that person because, you're lucky to have someone in a position of leadership. And, also don't just assume that somebody's in that position just because they know somebody or because of their gender or whatever the case is. Assume that they have some skills that have been shown. I know it's hard to do. Brandon, you come from a big bank background. I come from a big bank background before I was
The people in the position, it's unimaginable.
You scratch your head sometimes. So, there are legitimate cases, and there are probably many of them, where people get the job just because they've been around for a while and for who they know. We all
stuck it out.
That is not a male or female issue, though. That's because just because of bureaucracy and stuff like that. So you're gonna have to get over it. If it feels weird answering to a lady, suck it up, man. You just gotta do it and roll on.
Amen.
All right.
Can I ask an intermission question?
Yeah.
Would it change the idea to invite me on this podcast if you knew I was wearing my wife's deodorant right now?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, actually.
I'm glad I waited until we got started.
There's actually another podcast we're going to do on the xenoestrogens of deodorant and how those affect the male hormone cycle.
So my deodorant ran out, and I was getting ready, and I was like, I could smell summer fresh.
The fact that you thought that you needed deodorant to show up to my house, when I can't actually smell most things anyhow because I have nasal polyp issues. We're getting off topic here, but you got...
Totally.
So, but that you thought you needed to be baby fresh or whatever your scent happens to be, lavender.
I think it's lavender. It smells like flowers. I don't know.
Okay.
But anyhow, I thought I would ask a man, and I'm wearing my life's deodorant over here. I feel like I'm not qualified.
I think it's okay. We should come up with some kind of like snake venom deodorant or something like that. Whatever a bison smells like, we should make that for men.
Bison musk.
That'd be awesome.
Yes.
We just basically rub sticks of bark on a bison's hide. And just mail them out to everybody.
I've still got some beard oil that you made me a long time ago, and it's got a very piney scent.
Yeah, that's pretty good though, right?
I should have put that on my face before I came.
You should have done that.
Anyhow.
Okay.
Hi, Jack.
All right, so back to the next question. I know this is the one you guys are probably wanting to tune in for more than anything because not everybody has a female boss, but most guys are dealing with an issue of pornography. And I'll tell you, Brandon, this feels kind of weird to me because most of the time when there's like a men's meeting at church or there's some kind of gathering of men, this is one of the issues that gets brought up. And you're almost kind of like, at least I'm kind of like, I don't want to hear about this again. I don't want to hear the church's solution. I don't want to hear somebody's solution about this again because there's obviously this keeps coming up. It's a constant issue. And the same guys that are having the issue are having it over and over and over again. And this is, I'm not saying that that's wrong. I'm not saying churches should stop talking about this. I'm just saying the solution is not easy, which is one of the reasons that makes it difficult to talk about this.
Yeah.
And it's so broad. It's a broad issue. We could talk about it from issues with the brain. We could talk about it from issues with addiction, past abuse, how we think about women, what the Bible says, all this other kind of stuff. So there's a lot of places to go here.
And it's so available, too.
Yeah. So the pornography itself, it's just so accessible, available at any moment. It's not like when I was a kid and you were a kid, right?
Yeah.
You didn't have internet, right? When you were a kid?
No.
Okay, I didn't think so. So I forget when these things happen. So it was like magazines and stuff like that. Well, we'll get into this in a second. Let me just say the question here. It comes from a guy named Josh. He says, "I've overcome a few things in my life, but this one keeps coming back. Why do you think this is?" Talking about porn. What do you think it would take to defeat, and how would you go about doing that? And so I figured I would start out by talking about my experience with porn, how I think about it and don't think about it, and what's been helpful for that. Brandon, we haven't discussed this, actually.
No.
We've not talked, so you can follow your own path on how you want to address this. But essentially, so one of the things I found that was interesting, so I don't think about pornography. Actually, I don't think about sex very often, which some guys find really interesting or hard to believe because I'm supposed to be a man's man and all that kind of stuff. Well, I found out that my personality type and the fact that I have Asperger's actually kind of put me in this unique position where my brain is more fascinated by other things than that. Now, this actually causes some issues in my marriage. My wife's actually far more interested in that than I am. And so I've got to actually be really purposeful about that. And that's probably a whole nother topic for a podcast. But the point is that I think it's probably been somewhat easier for me to move out of away from pornography than it is for some other guys that have more of a routine and more of an addictive personality and that kind of stuff, and who are just drawn to it personality-wise. I'm not saying that that's a cop-out or I don't have any experience in this whole thing. I don't. So to kind of give you guys an idea, and it reminds me, actually, I had a dream about this last night. I had a dream about pornography, sort of. I'll tell you guys that.
This is going to be a weird conversation.
This is going to be a weird conversation. So when I was growing up as a kid, obviously we didn't have internet at the time, but we did have magazines and that kind of stuff. So Playboy, Hustler, I don't know what else was out there. Those were the things of the day. But even when you couldn't get your hands on those, we had like Sears catalogs and stuff with like girls with bras and stuff.
Lingerie sections where I got
which is
started.
weird. Like if you're a millennial listening to this and you're thinking that somebody actually, saw a still picture that was, you couldn't zoom in a magazine that was like, however many, small, and that was a turn on. That probably just...
Dude, you had to get by with what you could.
That's what you had back in the day, So you can judge me if you want to, but that's how it was. But I got introduced to actual pornography really early on. The 80s didn't do a very good job of filtering out what was on TV. My mom didn't do a good job of filtering out what was on TV.
Do you remember when you could see the nudie movies between like the blur bars on cable?
Oh, yeah, like HBO. Yeah, and you're like, that's either an elbow or a breast,
a nipple.
Or a nipple, yeah. There's something going on there, but you assumed it was always a nipple.
Yeah, totally.
So there was, society really hadn't locked this thing down yet. And obviously we're in a place now where there are tools to lock stuff down easier, but it's also more available than ever.
Dude, if you want it, you can find it.
You can find it, and you can get around it. And especially if you have kids, guys, I'm going to tell you right now, the best advice I can give you: lock everything down the best way that you can. I don't care how old your kids are. If they're young, they stumble on this stuff. It's not good to get in their head or get them started on this. And I'll go ahead before I forget. I want to recommend a program. It's called Custodio, Custodio or Custodio, something like that. Custodio.com. If you go on Google and you search for,
it'll fix it.
It'll find it, right? Google. And I'm telling you guys, put this thing on the biggest lockdown, restrictive mode that you can.
What does it do?
It basically allows you to, you can set it up for different accounts. So let's say your kid has a laptop or they got an iPhone or something like that, or just regular, laptop, desktop, doesn't really matter. You can install this stuff on there and you can lock it down for their device, right? And so you can lock it down just for your kids, because it can be super restrictive where like you can't use Google, you can't use Bing, whatever, if you use Bing.
Does anybody use Bing?
No.
Okay.
But it's funny actually, the website traffic to Wolf and Iron, the percentage of people that use Bing is so incredibly low, or browse from like a Windows mobile device.
But anytime you buy a piece of Microsoft software, it automatically changes everything to Bing.
Yeah.
I'm like, Microsoft, if I wanted your crap search engine, I would just use it. Sorry,
right.
Off track.
Yeah, off track. So put that on there. It's going to lock. You can basically go online and control everything from a central kind of command center and just lock everything down. And guys, I'm serious. It doesn't matter if you think your kid's 7 years old and he's never even thought about it. It doesn't matter. He can find it. So get on that. But back to my story. My parents were divorced. My dad was a single guy, didn't live like you're supposed to, had porn magazines out and stuff like that, so I got exposed there. Movies were freely available. All this stuff was pretty easy to get your hands on. Everybody knew somebody who had a grandpa or somebody who had an uncle or whatever that had a couple of magazines that he wasn't going to miss. And so you kind of get your head into that stuff, and it doesn't stop. And then so when I was in my 20s was when the internet... Well, I was in my teens when the internet came out, but in my 20s when it actually got to be somewhat accessible. I remember being on the USS Enterprise, actually. I was in the Navy. And they were just...
My nephew's on that ship right now.
Is he?
Yeah.
I thought they decommissioned it. Are you sure he's on there?
Could be... Oh, wow. Fake news. Sorry.
No, it could be... It could be the USS Enterprise, like the Starship thing. Maybe they're...
No, he's in the Navy, not...
Okay.
Basically. Anyhow, hijack.
Okay. All right. So so I was on there, and they're actually installing internet, which is just a bunch of sailors on a ship, and you're going to install the internet.
It's such a bad idea.
It's a terrible idea.
I'm going to use it to talk to my family. No, you're not.
No, you're going to surf for porn, and so that's pretty much what everybody did before they got that locked down. And I remember, I can remember like it was yesterday, really. I remember looking over the shoulders of some other guys when this stuff first came out, right? People are getting crazy emails and, from their girls and stuff like that. And lewd pictures are coming across and guys are looking up stuff. And it's, as you can imagine, it's like, you think about back in the World War II, some guys looking at nudie pictures or whatever in a magazine, similar thing happening, but it's on the internet and everybody's hooping and hollering and stuff like that. And I looked at that group of guys with myself outside of that group for a moment and I thought, I don't want to be like those men. And something about that scene really began to change how I thought about the women that we were looking at, about pornography itself, and really changed how I felt about pornography. And I'll be honest with you guys, for me, and I'm not bragging here or anything like that, for me, pornography doesn't do anything for me. It actually is a turnoff. So if I think if I think about women being in that kind of position of, even if they're willing participants, I think about my mom being a single mother and, and having to go to work and be ogled at, I don't know, by other guys, by being treated, poorly, and just basically being objectified, and that kind of stuff. And that's the image that I have in my head, which is, maybe my advice is just assume your mom is all the women that you see in porn. Maybe that would be the fix, or your grandma or whoever. But in all seriousness, it's you've got to look at it at the end of the day. I think my advice would be you've got to begin to look at it differently and see it for what it is. That it's not the real thing. It's absolutely it's terrible for your relationship, terrible for your mind. And I've talked quite a bit. I'm gonna let you take it over, Brandon.
Yeah, because I've got a completely different perspective.
Okay, go ahead.
Lust is absolutely, positively, bar none, my favorite sin. I'm actually jealous of you for your perspective. I think that's awesome that's the way your mind works. I thought when I got married, this won't be a problem anymore.
Sure. Yeah, a lot of guys do, yeah.
And that's not the case. Mm-hmm. And I thought when I have a baby girl, this won't be a problem anymore, because I'd be like, oh, how could I be the father of a girl but still want to look at naked women?
Yeah.
That's not the case.
Yeah.
Like, that desire, that temptation is still there. And just to give you a little bit of background on myself, growing up, my dad was half deaf, so I think he thought everybody else was half deaf. And I can distinctly remember coming down the stairs into my living room, and the stairs ran right behind the television. Oh, yeah. So I would hit the bottom stair, the channel would change, I would get out of the room, the channel would change right back, and I could hear what was going on. And I'm like, you really think you're fooling someone, old man? Come on.
He's got the volume cranked up.
Yeah, like you could hear everything. I was like, dude, this is not, you're not fooling anyone. And I also want to say kudos to the gentleman that asked this question.
Yeah.
Because honestly, having the balls to broach this subject is huge, because that shows a heart of wanting to fix a problem, when most men would rather just love that problem and live in that problem and act like it doesn't affect them when they're out in public and things like that. So it's awesome that he asked this question. And one of the notes that I have here is I talk to guys who don't struggle with this problem, and it seems legit, and I'm like, how? Yeah. So I'm actually surprised to hear your perspective on this. The only thing that I've ever found that that could truly conquer this sin issue is to bathe my mind in the Word of God and to pray and meditate. And it reminds me of a story I heard, or I guess it's a parable I heard one time.
Okay.
And we're going to do this right now.
All right.
So I want you to think about...
Do I have to close my eyes?
No, you can keep your eyes open.
Okay.
Just stop looking into mine, because it's weird. I want you to think about purple zebras.
Okay.
Think about purple zebras.
Wait, are the stripes purple, or what part of them is purple?
It's your zebra. Make it whatever you want.
Well, the whole thing can't be purple, otherwise it wouldn't be a zebra. Okay, the stripes are purple. That's how I got it in my mind. You guys do what you want.
The black is purple now, and the white is still white.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, so you got that image of a purple zebra in your mind, right?
Yep.
All right. Now, stop thinking about purple zebras. Don't think about purple zebras. Stop thinking about purple zebras. Do not get the image of purple zebras out of your mind. That image has to get out of your mind. Get it out of your mind. Stop thinking about purple zebras.
Right.
What are you thinking about right now?
I'm pretty good at this. So I'm actually imagining a regular zebra. But I get what you're saying. Normally...
You're killing the analogy.
No. So other guys are probably going, I can't stop thinking about purple zebras. But yes.
That's your Asperger's response. Most people would say, I'm thinking about purple zebras.
I know. I put in yes, I have I put in one category, purple zebras.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we've already established the fact that your brain works different than most people's.
Yes.
If you're sitting there telling yourself, don't think about purple zebras, don't think about purple zebras, you're going to be thinking about purple zebras.
Yeah.
Now think about pink giraffes. Pink giraffes are amazing. Pink giraffes are awesome. Pink giraffe this, pink giraffe that. most people are going to be thinking about the pink giraffe and not the purple zebra. So the purple zebra is lust, and the pink giraffe is the word of God and your prayers and your time in meditation and the things that God says about you and this problem.
Yeah.
So I realize that not everybody in your audience is going to be a Christian or even believe in God.
Sure.
I understand that. I used to be a militant atheist, but this is the only thing I ever found that worked.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I get it right every day. I'm a really sucky Christian, but if I put the effort in, I can slay that beast one day at a time.
Yeah.
But it takes daily effort.
No, that's good. I get that. And I want to make a clarification real quick. So I don't want you guys to think that I'm some kind of eunuch sitting over here across from Brandon and my testicles don't work. Look, I still find women attractive. I still find a good-looking lady good looking. Okay, all that kind of stuff. I just don't. Porn itself, sexual stuff, that sort of stuff, that doesn't do anything for me, and is actually offensive and it turns me off. But ladies themselves, so I still deal with lust issues where I see a good-looking woman or something like that, and I think, wow. And you know what? That's always going to be some sort of an issue because we're guys and we're supposed to be. I mean, if my wife died, I would hope to have the ability to find another woman attractive in my life, right? So I'm still built with that. And there are some things that I think that, there are cutoffs where you can say, how do I know when it's full on lust, and I'm thinking about having sex with this woman versus I'm just admiring her and appreciating her. And, a lot of guys, we try to say, well, I'm just not going to look at women or whatever the kind of, I'm going to treat all of them like they're a sister and I never think about them as an object of beauty. Well, women are beautiful. So I think it's difficult to toe that line. But I want to say another thing here. And you brought this up, Brandon, whether you realize it or not. And that is, you kind of talked about trying to not think about something causes you to think about it more and more.
Absolutely.
And I want to say this too. Whenever we take something that and we try to move it to a position of you shouldn't do that, right? This is a societal outcast. Ooh, yeah. Or what's the word I'm trying to think of?
It's a rule.
It's a rule, right? Yeah. We put rules around it.
Tell me what to do.
Right? Essentially what we've actually done is elevated it. We've removed it from everyday commonplace society, and we've actually put it on its own kind of pedestal. Well, not meaning to, but we've put it on its own pedestal where we're saying it can only be used in some areas and is only available to certain people in certain cases and whatever the case is, right? And when we do that with pornography, we shouldn't do that. We should do that with sex with our wives, right? We should say the sex relationship that I have with my wife is something that is to be between us. It's unique. It's special. Nobody else gets to experience that. But here's the thing about pornography: it doesn't deserve any kind of place of special circumstance in my mind. It really deserves. You have to understand that it is the lowest and most commonly available thing, and is therefore pretty much worthless.
It's like eating at McDonald's. It's the like lowest common denominator.
It's the lowest common denominator. It's basically, pornography is a McDonald's of sexual intercourse, maybe. I don't know.
We need to make a T-shirt.
I don't know what that T-shirt would look like, but basically, yeah. The point is that you have to understand pornography. When you say I want to make it a secret thing and it's a bad thing and I shouldn't be doing it, it actually increases our longing to do it. So what you need to realize is this: it's actually a very cheap thing that is super freely available to you. It doesn't cost you hardly anything, if anything at all, physically or monetarily, except for the consequences. And yet you're going to choose that over the thing that is actually elevated, and that is an actual relationship with your wife. And so when I think about some people, when they go on a diet, one of the things that they do, but the day before the diet, what do people do?
Binge.
They freaking binge, right? And because they love food, they love the idea. But guess what? Burger King's not going anywhere. Dunkin' Donuts is not going anywhere. McDonald's is not going anywhere. The Snickers bars, whatever it is that you were eating and binging on before, they're still available and they're cheap and it's garbage. So don't put your love into the thing that is worthless. Put your love and your mind into the thing that actually matters. And, instead of trying to elevate pornography into a place of like keeping it away from, out of the sight of other people, and it's a sort of secret bad thing, bring it out into the open and then treat it like what it is. It's trash. It's useless and worthless. And it's the lowest of the low in terms of sexual intimacy.
Well, not only that too, but like when my wife and I got married, I married a very good girl. She was a virgin when we got married.
Okay.
And I was not. And we, dated for a little over a year before we got married, which seems like crazy short for most people these days. Sure. But anyhow, that's what it is. I think virginity speeds things up a little bit too.
That's right.
But anyhow, we dated for a little over a year before we got married, and obviously I wasn't having sex with anyone while I was dating her, and
That's good to know.
Yeah, right. And it was very. While I had experienced that with other girls, it was very special and sacred to be able to, come together as a couple, a committed couple, and things like that. And I honestly, everything that I've ever done sexually, including watching pornography and being with other girls and things like that, I wish I have nothing but regret.
Yeah.
Nothing but regret. It only lasts, that sensation does not last that long, and it's not worth it. And I've got a funny story from my childhood, because this is getting a little heavy, and I like to have a good time.
All right.
When I was a kid, me and my cousins, and I think my brother may have been involved in this too, we're like, I want to see some naked ladies.
Right.
And my one cousin's a boy and one was a girl. And the girl cousin was like, well, I want to see some naked guys. So my boy cousin went to the gas station, and he stole a copy of Playboy and a copy of Playgirl for his sister.
Oh my gosh.
I was thinking, oh my God, if he would have got caught, how funny would that be?
Yeah. This is one confused kid, right?
Yeah. Just like, all right, confused.
Well, it's a
little
confusing
boy.
story. I mean, it's a confusing title because you think Playboy, that means, what is this about? Guys? Or is this, but yeah.
Yeah. And then just stealing the naked
dudes.
The naked dudes.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, I glanced at that one too and realized I would never measure up to some of the other men out there. But anyhow, just got really weird for both of us.
That was really awkward, yeah.
Yeah. Anyhow, yeah, guys, it's a daily battle. It's something that you have to. I think most Americans and most people in general wake up and think, oh, I can just leave my mind on autopilot. I don't have to be in control of this thing.
Yeah.
I don't have to take charge of my day.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do that, you'll drift.
Yeah.
And I read a really good book by Napoleon Hill called Outwitting the Devil or Outsmarting the Devil. And it talks about how 90 to 95% of the people out there are just on autopilot, just drifting through life. And if you do that, you're going to drift towards your temptations and the things that feel good in the moment and the things that don't build success in a business and the things that are just easy. And, watching pornography and rubbing one out in the shower is really easy.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
I call it shaking one off. But
yeah, shaking one off, rubbing one out, greasing a knuckle, whatever. Anyhow, that's like you said a minute ago, it's the lowest common denominator. It's the McDonald's of sexual gratification.
Yep.
And I think it's taboo to take the position that you and I are both taking, but
well, let's address that for a second, because there are guys that are going to be listening to this, and if you've made it this far, kudos, into the pornography talk, thinking that pornography was okay and a little porn's okay and whatever the case is. Look, guys, the studies, and this is not just me coming from a biblical Christian kind of standpoint on why porn's bad. There are plenty of studies out there that talks about what it does to your brain, how it screws up your understanding of what a relationship should be. It's sort of like eating, it's like taking heroin is kind of how they would say, but, think about it as like eating sugar. And then, then trying to enjoy an apple, right? So if you eat a bunch of sugar, then apples don't taste as sweet, right? But if you kick the sugar habit, then guess what? Carrots are actually sweet.
Carrots are sweet.
Most vegetables actually have a certain kind of sweetness to them, except for like asparagus. Those things are disgusting. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, I like asparagus. but
asparagus.
But you get the idea. So it fundamentally changes how your brain is wired and thinks about sex and intimacy. And there are plenty of studies out there. I'll try to put a link out there, or a couple of links out there as I come across them in the show notes for this podcast episode. But guys, it's against you. I mean, in terms of the science, the data is out about what porn does. This isn't something that you need to spice up your life or your marriage or the sexual relationship you have. This is not something that should exist in any couple's relationship. And look, anybody who has a disagreement with that, I'm open to talking about it. But I'm telling you right now, the data is against you. And look, guys, this is one of the steps to treating pornography. Is actually pornography addiction is actually treating it like an addiction. How it wires your brain, how it creates habits and stuff like that. What satisfies you, what gives you, certain kinds of pleasure and stuff like that. And so, if you're listening to this episode and you're like, I appreciate you guys' perspective, but it's still not helping me. I'm still going to be stuck doing the same thing I've always done. Get a professional. Get somebody who's going to see this for what it is, as an actual addiction, and begin unpacking why your brain finds delight in something that you yourself don't want to find delight in, and get it treated like an addiction, and it's going to give you some help, and then get some accountability, and also get custodio. There are a couple of other things that you can put on there. Covenant Eyes, I think is that right? Am I saying that right? Is one of the things where, like, basically if you search for porn, it's going to, from my understanding, it's going to like text or email a friend of yours like, hey, Joe, search for porn, or something along those lines. So there's kind of some built-in accountability, but honestly, those things are only so good. There's still ways to get around.
They're only as good as you want them to be.
Right. Yeah.
It's 2017.
It's 2017. Yeah.
You can find technology. You can find your way around technology. I mean, come on, guys.
Right. So the best thing is you've got to get your mind right on this issue, and some of that's going to be overcoming addiction. It's going to be understanding what maybe in your childhood kind of led you to this. There's all kinds of different paths to go with this.
It creates unrealistic expectations. Like, not every woman is turned on all the time.
Yeah. Because you took your pants off.
Yeah, or because you walked in the room, or you delivered a pizza, or whatever the narratives in pornography happen to be.
Sure.
That's just, it's not real. Here's the thing that people don't realize. You are falling for a lie. You are believing. These are paid actors and actresses who are putting on a performance for you. And another way to look at it is, why are you so weak that you need that to feel good? Why do you need to see another man dominate a woman, or whatever you're watching? Why do you need that to feel good? And I'm talking to myself here, guys. Like, I stopped watching pornography a long time ago, but man, I still miss it. Like, it felt really good, and it stimulated all these neurons in my brain and whatever the hell else was going on. But that's the question I ask myself, is why? What is it about my life that makes me feel like I need that right now? And what can I do to fix the real problem?
Yeah. No, that's good.
So
I kind of give you guys an image too that helped me understand this a little bit better too. A guy, I was thinking it was actually at one of those conference things I was telling you about, one of those men's meetings where guys this is the subject that comes up right all the time. And the guy used this as an example of what would your family think if you had a heart attack, for example, while you're watching porn in the bathroom or wherever you're at, you're in the middle of shaking one off, and you freaking have a heart attack with your junk in your hand. What's that going to say about you? How's that going to reflect on the way your family views you, thinks about you, your legacy? And and think about that, guys, because it does. The thing is, how you view pornography is a reflection on your legacy. How people view you as a man, what they think that you need, and what are your vices and that kind of stuff. And look, if you think a secret, if you think nobody knows about it, if you think that you're keeping it in the dark, you're lying to yourself. Your children are smarter than you think they are, like Brandon was saying.
Yep.
Your wife is smarter than you think she is. Other people know. And I want to say something else too. I remember being in groups of guys at different jobs in the past where guys would openly talk about the videos that they downloaded and the stuff that they watched, and they had conversations like, you got to check this out. This was about porn. And you've got to be that guy that stands up and says, guys, this isn't right. Or remove yourself from that situation. Hearing about websites that you can go to and stuff like that to check stuff out, is not helpful. Yeah. But you've got to, somebody's got to take that stand, and that should be you. You should be the guy that stands up and says, guys, Let's elevate the level of conversation and our mindset here. And if we're not going to do that, I don't want to be part of what we're talking about. And hopefully you'll set that example for them.
Amen. Be the leader.
Be the leader.
Be the leader.
You got anything else, my friend, on this topic?
I think I'm good, man. I got to go deodorant shopping. I know that.
All right, Brandon's going to go get his deodorant on.
Man deodorant.
Man deodorant, yes, if there is such a thing. Guys, we want to hear your feedback on these things. Female bosses, dealing with that situation, issues with pornography as well. You guys can head over to the Wolf and Iron community and actually address some of these things. We got a closed group over there where you guys can feel free to talk about these things. It's over at wolfandiron.com/the group. If you guys aren't a member already, it'll take you over there to the Facebook group and you can request membership. There's a few questions that you have to answer before you're let in, but I'd love to see you over there. Otherwise, we'll see you over there in the Wolf and Iron community to talk about some of these things. And guys, I'd love to hear your feedback on this. And I'm sure you do, if you have different perspectives on these issues and things that have helped you, particularly around the pornography thing. Something that Brandon and I haven't addressed, or if there's links to, maybe online courses that you've been through or anything like that, men's conferences. I'm not knocking those. Don't take that the wrong way, the way I've talked about those. Anything, whatever it is that's helped you may be the right fit for another guy as well. So make sure you put those out there and let us know. And until next time, guys, appreciate it. Send over your questions. Head over to wolfandiron.com/askaman or send an email to askaman@wolfandiron.com. Send us your questions. And we'll talk to you next time. Take care. Okay, guys. So for those of you who are eager and wanting to hear about this pornography dream that I had, so this question of pornography and stuff that we just went through with the episode was on my mind apparently, and kind of working on my subconscious, and I actually had this dream last night about it, and I was reminded of that when I was recording the episode with Brandon, but then I forgot to tell you guys, so here goes. In the dream, I'm in one of my dad's old houses, and I'm walking. It looks different. It doesn't look like it actually did, but it doesn't really matter for the context of this, I guess. I have to go to the bathroom, so maybe I had to go to the bathroom in the dream as well. I don't know. So I had to go to the bathroom, and I'm walking through the house, and I walk past essentially what's like a laundry room, and on top of like a washer or dryer is a couple of porno mags, and then on top of that are some clothes, so I can't really see them. So my dreams are filtered out. That's nice. I can't see what's on the cover. I can't even really read the title, and I just sort of glance at them, and then there was that moment of temptation, like, I wonder what my dad's still into, or I wonder what he's reading these days, or I wonder if I want to look at these things and see what they're about. And then I decided not to. And I remember as I was continue walking to the restroom, I thought to myself, I'm glad that I'm a better man than that. And I think that was some insight for me. I wish I'd shared this with you guys during the episode, but there's some insight for me just in seeing that, because I think sometimes in our dreams, I didn't realize I was dreaming at the time, but I think sometimes in our dreams, we're our truer selves or our freer selves, especially when we're in a situation where we don't think anybody could know or see what we're doing, and then to make the right choice. I was proud of myself, essentially what it comes down to. And so I don't know if that's any benefit to you guys, but I wanted to share that since I brought it up, and hopefully it'll do somebody some good. Thanks, guys, for tuning in.